Hi, this is Yoan and welcome to a new video. This episode is quilting episode where I share fun and simplified quilt patterns. So today I'm going to show you how to make this island path quilt. This is another layer cake quilt pattern. The finished measurements are about 70.5 inch by 81.5 inch. So for this project you will need one set of layer cake or 42 pieces of 10-inch squares. You may also cut individual pieces and rather use fabric scraps or fat quarters or yardage. For this quilt, I use batik fabrics to get that tropical island vibe. I mix and match different kind of batiks from different manufacturers. Some are from layer cakes, but some I cut individually. But I would say most of these are Indonesian batik. And of course, feel free to use different theme, different colors, anything that your heart desire for this project. I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's get started. First, we're gonna do the cutting of our layer cakes. So I like to stack a couple of layer cakes and cut them at the same time. You may do one at a time or a few more layer cakes at the same time, whichever one you are more comfortable with. Make sure that all the edges are aligned. Now take your ruler. First, you wanna measure 2.5 inch. So here I'm aligning my ruler with the 2.5 inch point and then cut. Now let's set this one aside a little bit. And then you wanna measure 3.5 inch and cut. Set these two strips aside for now. And then you wanna rotate this remaining strip just like so. Measure 2.5 inch and then cut. Set this aside. And then measure 3.5 inch and cut. And that's it. So you should end up with 5 fabric panels, and we're gonna name them numerically. So you've got fabric 1, fabric 2, fabric 3, 4, and 5. Now if you prefer to not using layer cake and cut your fabric individually, simply follow these measurements and cut 42 pieces of each. Continue cutting your layer cake pieces in the same manner. So you should end up with 42 pieces of each fabric 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, you want to cut 1-inch strips from your background fabric for fabric 6 and 7. And you will need to cut 84 pieces of each. For fabric 8 and 9, you will need to cut 1.25 inch strips. Also from the background fabric, 84 pieces each. To make the block, you want to lay out all the fabric panels just like shown on the screen right now. Or you may refer to the diagram that I provided on the PDF pattern. We're gonna start sewing this center section where the fabric 3, 4, 5 and fabric 6 in between. So I'm gonna start by sewing fabric 3 and 6 right sides together. And as always, we're gonna piece the patchwork using scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. I simply use my 1/4 inch presser foot, which never fails me. Press the seams towards one side. Next, we're gonna sew fabric 4 and 6 right sides together. Press the seams towards one side, and of course you want to always press the seams as you go when piecing the patchwork. Now that we've sewn the center section, we're going to continue by sewing the fabric 7 strips. So I'm just going to start from this side. Sew with the strip facing up. Hold the other end with your finger as you sew. You may also pin this beforehand if you prefer that. Next, we're gonna sew fabric 1 and 2. So I'm just gonna start from fabric 2. Now that the center block is done, we're gonna sew fabric 8 to the top and the bottom of the block, and then fabric 9 to the sides of the block. So let's start by sewing fabric 8. Press the seams towards fabric 8. Now sew fabric 9 and press the seams towards fabric 9. And there you go, so the block is done, and if everything lays flat, this block should measure 11.5 inch by 11.5 inch. Now continue piecing your patchwork, and you should make in total of 42 blocks. Now when you lay out your block, you want to alternate the direction of each block, just like that. No need to think too much about it. There is a diagram in the pattern that I provided, so you can certainly follow that. So lay out your blocks in 7 rows, so each row will have 6 blocks. So I had to roll on the floor to lay out all of my quilt blocks since I do not own any very large table. Once you're happy with the layout of your quilt, let's go ahead and piece all the blocks together. Here I've already grouped each row in order, labeling each row to avoid any confusion. Sew your quilt blocks one row at a time. I'm still using my 1/4" presser foot here. Since you don't have to line up any seams at this point, simply keep the edges aligned, holding on to the bottom end of the blocks. When you press the seams, you want to alternate the pressing direction of each row so that it's easy for you to nestle the seams later when joining the rows together. Once all the rows are already sewn and pressed, let's join them together. So here I've got my first and second row and I'm going to join them together. If you want to, you can match and pin the seams beforehand, or you can match the seams as you go, like what I do here. Do whichever method feels right for you. Now let's work on the border. So for this quilt, we're gonna use rather narrower border, only 2.5" wide, since this is already such a large quilt. Start by sewing the shorter border or border 1. So I like to first match the center point of the border with the center point of the quilt, and then pin the edges as well. Sew with the border strip facing up, and then press the seams towards the border fabric. Alright, once you've sewn the borders and your quilt top is done and ready to go, let's continue with the rest of the steps of the quilting, starting from layering your quilt top with the batting and the backing fabric, baste it with some pins, and then hop to your sewing machine and do the quilting. Feel free to do any quilting design and method that you prefer. I free motion quilt mine with simple meandering leaf design. So this is almost similar to loop-the-loop approach, but instead of the loop, I make sort of leafy design, which is super easy once you get a hang of it. For the border, I did the simple U-shaped design, up and down and back and forth. I really did enjoy doing this design. It's quite therapeutical. Alright guys, finish your quilt by binding the raw edges with your favorite binding method. I use the regular traditional binding method with hand stitching at the end. I made my own version of binding tutorial, so if you want to go check it out, I will have the link somewhere in the description box down below. And voila, here is my finished quilt. I am super happy with the result. That's all for today guys. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye!